Hi! Okay, so we're going to start with our 6th grade workbook, and we're going to go to lesson 1. I'm going to do a read aloud for you, but while I read aloud, I want you to make sure that you're following along in your book, okay? Don't just listen to me. So we're going to start with lesson 1, which is on page 2 of your workbook, but we're going to go ahead and move right on to the actual story, which starts on page 6, okay? Follow along with me. Christopher's Journal. February 20th. Sometimes it's hard to explain to my friends that even though my brother Vincent is 4 years older than I am, it sometimes seems like I'm way older than he is. My friends really like Vincent. His laugh is contagious and he's a loyal friend. But at the same time, I know they get exasperated when he asks the same questions over and over, or when it takes him a long time to understand something. Like last week, we were at Trey's house for a video game tournament, and my team was winning until it was Vincent's turn. I should have remembered that video games are hard for him. His hands couldn't keep up with what was happening on the screen, and my team ended up losing. I knew my friends were disappointed. Or there was this time we tried to play basketball. I could tell that my friends didn't really want Vincent on their team because he has trouble catching and dribbling the ball. I didn't want Vincent to get upset, so I sat out with him and cheered from the sidelines. But I wish I could have been playing. I love Vincent and I always include him. Sometimes I wish I didn't have to take care of him so much. Tomorrow Tony and I are going ice skating at Wilson's Pond. It's been a real Vermont winter and we've had a ton of snow. Mom said I have to bring Vincent. And she reminded me to watch out for Vincent, just like she has a million times. February 21st. I can hardly believe what happened this afternoon. Tony and I went to Wilson's Pond. Vincent came along, but because Mom told me he wasn't allowed to skate, he just sat on the bench and watched us. Sometimes he falls asleep when he's bored, but today he was wide awake, which was lucky for me. I should have been more cautious, but I was so excited to be off on my own, skating, that I wasn't paying attention to how the ice felt. When I tried to do a jump sequence, I fell hard. The ice under me cracked open and I began floundering in the deep freezing water. Tony was skating at the far end of the pond and didn't see the accident. There was nobody close by except for Vincent. I started screaming help, hoping that Tony would hear me. I started to panic that I was going to freeze to death. Suddenly, I saw Vincent moving across the ice. I was so relieved I didn't even think about my mom's warnings or anything else. I saw him slip a few times, but he looked determined. He kept going until he reached me. Then he laid down on the thickest part of the ice and stretched out his arms to me. I gripped them tightly, afraid I would pull him in with me, but Vincent was stronger than I expected. As he held on to my arms, he inched backward toward the end of the pond. By the time he pulled me out of the water, I was soaked and shaking, and my lips were blue, but I was safe. February 24th. When I explained to my mom and dad how Vincent saved my life, they were really impressed. Vincent flashed his famous smile and said it was no big deal, but I could tell he was proud of himself. Since then, he has loved telling the story of how he saved his little brother's life. I always thought of myself as the big brother, the one always in charge of Vincent, the one always having to look out for him, but now I know we're both looking out for each other. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read the questions out loud to you and the answers, okay? Question number 1. Underline sentences in the passage that support the idea that Christopher is a dynamic character. Question number 2. Which of the following sentences expresses one possible theme, so like the message, for this passage? A. Sometimes you have to find new friends. B. Always put your friends first. C. People's abilities can surprise you. Or D. It's hard for people to change. Flip the page. Part A of question 3. From whose point of view is the story told? From Vincent's first-person point of view? From Christopher's first-person point of view? From a third-person omniscient narrator's point of view, or from the point of view of a third-person limited narrator who knows only Vincent's thoughts. Part B. Which evidence from the passage supports the answer to Part A? His laugh is contagious and he's a loyal friend. It's been a real Vermont winter. I should have been more cautious. Or there was nobody close by except for Vincent. Question number 4. Briefly summarize the plot, so the things that happen in the story, including the conflict. Write your response. Okay, so that's it for the questions for the first story. I'm going to continue with lesson 1 and read the second story, which starts on page 9. A hint here, they have little things on the side to help you as you read, so make sure you look at them. Okay, a treacherous journey. Long ago, a 12-year-old girl named Gretchen lived with her family on a farm in Switzerland in a remote area far from town and any neighbors. As the oldest child, Gretchen was the most adept at handling the goats on their farm and helping her father plow their land with their hard-working mule. Hans. Gretchen was always busy working with her parents on the daily chores of farm life. She often accompanied her father on trips to the town market where they sold goat butter and cheese. They had made and then purchased supplies with their earnings. When her mother became very ill, a traveling doctor prescribed a special medicine that could be obtained from only a certain apothecary. The doctor gave Gretchen's father instructions for finding the apothecary, who lived a day's ride away. Gretchen's father decided that she would make this journey on their mule because she was the fastest rider. Her father stayed to watch over the mother, children, and farm animals. As the doctor left, he warned Gretchen that she must buy the medicine from only this trusted apothecary, Herr Kalt, because only his medicine could save her mother. If you can't get the medicine and return in 2 days' time, your mother may not survive, cautioned the doctor. Gretchen's father warned her that there might be obstacles along the way. The journey is treacherous, my child, he said. You must cross a raging river on a footbridge, which shakes in the wind. Hold tight to the post as you cross, and don't look down. As you travel through the woods, keep watch for bears, and if you see one, bang on this iron pot to scare it away. Okay, so based on this, oh my gosh, just kidding, there's so much more to read. Alright, I'm going to keep reading. Follow along on page 10. All these warnings made Gretchen very nervous, but she tried to hide these feelings from her family because she knew that she was their only hope. Her father helped her pack the mule's saddlebags with food and water for the journey. Then she set off down the dirt road. By noon, Gretchen and Hans arrived at the river, which roared louder than a waterfall. The water churned its way around huge boulders, and the wind tossed the tiny wooden bridge from side to side. Gretchen knew that if she didn't cross this terrifying bridge, she had no chance of getting the medicine for her mother. Doing her best to think of nothing but her mother and family, she guided her nervous mule across the bridge, step by step. Finally, they reached the other side and sat down to rest, eat, and drink. Gretchen was tired and wanted to take a nap in the warm sunshine, but she knew she couldn't rest. She was determined to continue their journey. Just as they reached the forest, Hans began sniffing the air. Soon, his skinny legs were shaking. Gretchen quickly saw the cause of his distress: a mother bear and her cub emerging from the woods. Gretchen remembered her father's advice and took her iron pot out of the saddlebag. As hard as she could, she beat it with the metal spoon until the bears turned around and disappeared into the forest. As As the sun began to lower in the sky, Gretchen saw a young man coming toward them on the road. "Good afternoon, young lady," he greeted her politely. "What brings you to this terribly dangerous road?" Gretchen told him about the medicine she had to buy and asked if he knew where the apothecary lived. The young man, whose name was Leon, reached into his pocket and pulled out a bottle of dark blue liquid. Leon smiled at Gretchen and offered her the bottle. That's weird. "You don't have to bother walking all the way to Herr Kalt's house," Leon said. "It's quite far from here, and you won't arrive until midnight. I have some medicine here that is the same as what you would get from Herr Kalt. You can take it and be home early to give your mother's life-saving drink. All I want in return is your mule." Gretchen was very tempted to take the bottle. She stared sadly at her beloved mule, and Hans stared sadly back. She didn't want to give Hans to a stranger, but she could save time and get the medicine to her mother more quickly if she did. But then Gretchen realized that she would have to walk all the way back, and it would take her more time without Hans. And how could she forget how much her father needed the mule for plowing? Then another thought occurred to her. Suppose this wasn't the medicine her mother needed? She remembered that the doctor told her that only Herr Kalt could be trusted. If she took this medicine and it didn't work, her whole trip would be pointless. Gretchen refused the offer and mounted her mule. She had to get to the apothecary as soon as possible. Hans trotted down the road, and before long, the travelers reached Herr Kalt's cottage. "Well, it certainly didn't take me until midnight to get here," Gretchen thought suspiciously. Herr Kalt presented the medicine in a tin of yellow powder. He told her to mix the yellow powder with water when she got home. Gretchen realized that what she suspected was true. Leon's blue liquid wasn't the right medicine at all, and she had been wise to refuse it. Fortunately, the trip home was uneventful. After taking the medicine, her mother recovered, and the whole family congratulated Gretchen for making her perilous journey. Gretchen was proud of herself too. As her father said, she had showed determination, bravery, and a steady mind and heart on this quest to save her mother's life. Now, that's the end of the story. We're going to continue on page 12 with the questions, okay? Question number 1. How might the passage have been different if it had been narrated in third-person omniscient point of view? A. It would have had more sentences beginning with the pronoun I. B. It would have told more of Gretchen's thoughts and feelings but no one else's. C. It might have included other characters' thoughts in addition to Gretchen's. Or D. It would have taken place in the future, not the distant past. Question number 2. The sentences in the chart have underlined words. Write the correct meaning for each underlined word in the right column of the chart. Meanings. A long search, dangerous, a person who makes medicine, or able to do something well. So there's a table and you have to put the words next to, or put the meaning of the underlined word in the table. Okay? Question number 3. Gretchen knew that if she didn't cross this terrifying bridge, she had no chance of getting the medicine for her mother. Doing her best to think of nothing but her mother and family, she guided her nervous mule across the bridge, step by step. Finally, they reached the other side and sat down to rest, eat, and drink. Gretchen was tired and wanted to take a nap in the warm sunshine, but she knew she couldn't rest. She was determined to continue the journey. What does the passage tell you about Gretchen's character traits and her motivations? So, what kind of person is she, and how do you know that, right? Question number 4. This question has 2 parts. First answer part A, then answer part B. Part A. What message might the author be trying to share with readers in a treacherous journey? Circle all the possible themes that can be supported by the passage. A. Living in a remote place is good for a family. B. The easiest way out of a problem is the best. C. Determination to reach a goal can help you overcome many obstacles. Think carefully about the possible results of your decisions. Or E. Never tell your secrets to anyone, or you might be sorry. Part B. Which evidence from the passage supports the answer to Part A? A. She often accompanied her father on trips to the town market where they sold goat butter and cheese they had made and then purchased supplies with their earnings. B. All these warnings made Gretchen very nervous, but she tried to hide these feelings from her family because she knew that she was their only hope. C. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Gretchen saw a young man coming toward them on the road. D. Gretchen told him about the medicine she had to buy and asked if he knew where the apothecary lived. Moving on to the next page. Question 5. Describe the main conflict in the passage. How do other story events or character actions complicate the conflict? Last question, question number 6. Reread the scene where Gretchen must decide how to respond to Leon's offer. Then, explain how this scene reveals her traits and motivations, contributes to the development of the plot, and moves the story towards its resolution, or its ending. Include evidence from the passage. Okay, so those are all the questions to the second story of Lesson 1. Again, make sure, if you can't read all the questions, ask somebody to help you. Or you can always go back in the video and find the part of the story you need to reread or re-listen to, okay? Try your best.